The documents on the projector screen blurred as my father's words registered. Rebecca has the perfect instincts for this. The Foster Media legacy couldn't be in better hands. The boardroom erupted in applause while my sister stood, accepting congratulations for the strategy I'd spent 14 months developing. The proposal, still displaying my original file name in the footer, now bore her name in bold across the title slide. My fingers dug into the leather portfolio where I kept the only remaining copy of my original work. The room suddenly felt airless as my father continued, "A 20% increase in digital revenue under her direction proves she's ready." 20%, the exact figure from my quarterly report. The one I'd submitted to him privately just last week. My heartbeat thundered in my ears as my sister caught my gaze across the polished conference table, her lips curving into a smile that never reached her eyes. "That's all you deserve," she mouthed silently before turning to accept my father's proud embrace. "My name is Natalie, I'm 34 and a media strategist. This is the story of how I reclaimed my voice after years of having it stolen." The irony wasn't lost on me. Foster Media Group, the company my grandfather built from a small-town newspaper into a regional empire, prided itself on amplifying authentic voices. Yet mine had been systematically muffled since my mother's death 15 years ago. Dad remarried Victoria within a year, a publishing executive with sharp instincts and a sharper tongue. Her daughter Rebecca became the son our household revolved around. Their relationship was easy, shared interests, similar mannerisms, the kind of natural connection that made my presence feel like an awkward footnote. I learned to navigate the shadows, documenting everything, analyzing patterns. When Rebecca received praise for ideas I'd mentioned at dinner the previous night, I began keeping meticulous records. When opportunities disappeared after I expressed interest, I noted dates and times. For years, I thought I was being paranoid until the evidence became impossible to ignore. Last Christmas, Dad announced Rebecca would be joining the executive team. I had 10 years of industry experience, she had a fresh MBA, and our stepmother's unwavering support. When I questioned the decision, Victoria placed her hand on my father's arm. "Natalie's always been better with details than vision," she said, her voice dripping with false kindness. "Not everyone is meant to lead." The familiar sting faded faster than usual. I'd stopped expecting fairness years ago, focusing instead on building my own reputation within the company. Client by client, project by project, I created a portfolio of success that spoke for itself. Or so I thought. The Digital Transformation Initiative had been my chance to prove myself. For over a year, I worked early mornings and late nights, analyzing market trends, interviewing industry experts, building financial projections. When I finally presented my findings to Dad, he seemed impressed but non-committal. "Let me think about this," was all he said. 3 weeks passed without word. Then came the company-wide email announcing a special board meeting where Rebecca would unveil her groundbreaking strategy for digital expansion. I'd been naive enough to believe talent would eventually outweigh favoritism. That morning in the boardroom shattered that illusion completely. As executives filed out, congratulating Rebecca, I remained seated, staring at the projection screen. My father hesitated by the door, glancing back with something like regret shadowing his features. But he didn't speak. He never did when it mattered. Later that afternoon, Zoe from IT appeared at my office door, her expression uncomfortable. "I need to revoke your access to the strategy server," she said, not meeting my eyes. "Victoria's orders." "When?" I asked, my voice steadier than I felt. "Effective immediately." "And," she hesitated, "they've requested all your files be transferred to Rebecca's account before deletion." Something cold settled in my chest. Not just my work on the digital strategy, all my files. Years of research, client relationships, project frameworks. They weren't just stealing my ideas, they were erasing my contributions entirely. "How long do I have?" I asked. "Until end of day." "I'm sorry, Natalie." After she left, I sat motionless, watching the minute hand on my office clock. 5 years at Foster Media. 15 years of trying to be seen in my own family. All of it culminating in systematic erasure. I should have felt devastation. Instead, a strange clarity washed over me. The daughter who'd spent her life hoping for recognition was gone. In her place stood a woman with nothing left to lose. I plugged in my external drive and began downloading everything. Not just my files, evidence of every idea they'd stolen, every meeting where Victoria had undermined me, every email where Rebecca had taken credit for my work. The system logs showing exactly when my original strategy document had been accessed, downloaded, and modified. My phone buzzed with a text from Marcus, our legal counsel and the only true ally I had at the company who had access to the executive calendar. They just called an executive meeting for tomorrow. 9 a.m. Your name is on the agenda. I didn't need to ask what kind of meeting. Victoria had been looking for an excuse to push me out for years. Now she had the perfect narrative, the jealous daughter, unable to accept her sister's success, stealing company documents out of spite. The irony was almost beautiful. That evening, instead of going home, I drove to Digital Pulse Studio where Dimitri had mentioned working late nights during our previous recruitment conversations. I'd noticed his car was always in the parking lot when I drove past after hours, a testament to his notorious work ethic. The small digital media studio across town had been courting me for months, the one I'd loyally declined out of some misguided sense of family obligation. Dimitri, their founder, was still there, coding late as usual. His eyes widened when I walked in without an appointment. "That job offer still open?" I asked without preamble. "For you?" "Always," he said, gesturing to a chair. "But I thought Foster Media was family." "It is," I replied, setting my laptop on his desk. That's exactly the problem. I spent the next 2 hours showing him everything, not just the stolen strategy but the comprehensive digital transformation plan I'd developed. The parts Rebecca had conveniently left out because she didn't understand them. The client relationships I'd cultivated that Victoria had no idea existed. The content partnerships I'd negotiated that hadn't been announced yet. When I finished, Dimitri leaned back, hands clasped behind his head. "So what exactly are you proposing?" "A partnership," I said. "Your technical expertise, my industry knowledge, and these relationships they don't even know they're about to lose." "And Foster Media?" "They made their choice," I replied. "Now they get to live with the consequences." I didn't sleep that night. Instead, I drafted emails to every client I'd personally worked with, every industry contact I'd developed, every partner whose contract was coming up for renewal. Not burning bridges, I was too strategic for that, but laying groundwork. By morning, I had 37 responses. By the time I walked into Foster Media's lobby for the last time, I had 52. The executive floor was quiet when I arrived, 15 minutes before the meeting scheduled to terminate me. Victoria's assistant avoided my eyes as I passed. My father's office door was closed. Rebecca's was open, her voice carrying as she spoke on the phone, already redecorating the office that would soon be vacant. I walked past them all to the boardroom and began setting up. When the executives filed in at 9 a.m. sharp, they found me standing at the head of the table, presentation ready, external counsel present. My father stopped short in the doorway. Victoria's carefully controlled expression flickered with uncertainty. "What is this?" she demanded. "A meeting about my future with Foster Media," I replied calmly. "Isn't that what we're here for?" Before she could respond, I continued. "I've taken the liberty of preparing some relevant materials. You'll find copies at your seats." The folders contained evidence of every instance my work had been stolen over the past 5 years. System logs. Timestamps. Witness statements from colleagues brave enough to speak up. And most damaging, the original digital strategy document with my name on it, alongside the modified version presented yesterday with Rebecca's. "This is ridiculous," Rebecca sputtered, but her face had gone pale. My father hadn't spoken. He slowly opened his folder, eyes moving methodically across each page. "There are 2 ways this meeting can end," I said, my voice steady. "First option, I leave Foster Media today with a severance package reflecting my contributions, a non-disparagement agreement protecting all parties, and my client relationships intact." Victoria's eyes narrowed. "And the second option?" I smiled. "The second option involves my external counsel here, the industry partners copied on page 12, and a very public conversation about intellectual property theft within family-owned media companies. Your choice." The silence that followed was deafening. My father finally looked up, his expression unreadable. "You would do this to your family?" The question held a lifetime of expectations. "Stay quiet. Keep the peace. Accept less." "No, Dad," I replied softly. This is what my family did to me. I'm just declining to remain invisible. 3 hours later, I walked out of Foster Media for the last time, severance agreement signed, key clients notified of my departure, personal belongings in a single box. The evidence package remained with my external counsel, a safeguard that ensured the non-disparagement agreement would be respected by all parties. My phone buzzed with messages from Dimitri. How did it go? I texted back, exactly as planned. When do we launch? His response came immediately. The website goes live tomorrow. Just need your final sign-off on the name. I paused on the sidewalk, looking back at the Foster Media building towering behind me. The empire built by my grandfather, controlled by my father, promised to my sister. The name that had simultaneously defined and erased me. Authentic Voice Media, I typed. Because some stories deserve to be heard. In the months that followed my departure, Authentic Voice Media grew from concept to reality. My severance package, combined with Dimitri's existing business infrastructure and eager investors who recognized the potential in our partnership, gave us the runway we needed. 6 months later, I stood in our new offices, watching as the Foster Media announcement scrolled across the financial news ticker. Regional media giant reports 17% revenue decline, CEO cites unexpected market challenges. Marcus, who had joined my company 3 months after I left, handed me a coffee. They are calling your father for comment. Rumor is they are losing the Westridge account. I nodded, unsurprised. Westridge had been one of the first clients to sign with us after our launch. By the end of our first quarter, we'd secured partnerships with 14 former Foster Media clients. Not through sabotage, simply by delivering the innovation they'd been promised but never received. My phone lit up with an incoming call. My father's name appeared on the screen. It had taken 6 months, 3 ignored dinner invitations, and a significant market share loss for him to make contact. I considered letting it go to voicemail, but something made me answer. Natalie Foster, I said, using the professional tone I'd adopted for all business calls. There was a pause before he spoke. I saw your feature in Media Innovators Monthly. Not an apology. Not quite an acknowledgement. But something. We've had a good quarter, I replied neutrally. Another pause. Your sister resigned yesterday. I said nothing, waiting. Victoria and we are separating, he continued. The board is questioning my leadership. Dad didn't elaborate, but industry gossip suggested Victoria had already moved out of the family home, taking her extensive art collection but leaving behind the family photos she'd always treated as mere decorations. According to Marcus, Rebecca had accepted a position at a smaller firm across the country, as far from her failed triumph as possible. Still, I remained silent. The consequences he was facing weren't my creation, they were the natural result of choices made long before I left. I didn't see it, he finally said, his voice smaller than I'd ever heard it. Any of it. I thought I was protecting the company, but I was just. I didn't see you. The admission hung between us, too little and too late, yet somehow exactly what I'd been waiting 15 years to hear. Would you consider? He hesitated. Would you be willing to meet? Just to talk. I looked around at the office I'd built, the team that valued my voice, the success that had come not from my family name but from finally being heard. I can do lunch on Thursday, I said finally. Not a reconciliation. Not forgiveness. But a beginning. After we hung up, I walked to the window overlooking the city. The same view I once had from Foster Media, but now seen through entirely different eyes. If you've ever had your voice diminished or your contributions stolen, know this: your worth isn't determined by those who fail to see it. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do isn't fighting for a seat at their table, it's building your own. And making sure it's visible from their window.